Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Cruz and welcome back to another video. In this one, I'm gonna reluctantly reveal to you my worst recording experience. But before we get started, please do all the things to help this channel grow. Like this video, subscribe and comment below, and be sure to hit the bell icon so you get an alert every single time I upload a video. Without further ado, let's get started. Alright guys, so I'm gonna tell you a cringy story for me. And I really wish that this took place like long ago. But unfortunately, this was pretty recent. In fact, it happened last year in 2020. And it was terrible. So let's talk about it. Let me give you a brief little backstory as to what happened so you don't think I'm too crazy. You see, 2020 obviously kind of had its twists and turns, but one thing that it gave me was an opportunity to really be able to play on a lot of people's albums. So I actually was able to do a lot of recording in the year 2020, and I was called up by other artists and producers to help play on records and to record stuff. And I was actually really honored to do that people wanted me and my guitar sounds on their records and on their songs. So around the fall or late summer, early fall time of 2020, I got a call to do this session by a producer friend of mine who I know very well. I love working with him. He's great. But he called me in to do a session, and at this point I say yes almost blindly because I know that he's a very specific kind of producer. He calls people to do very specific tasks. So I know that when he's calling me to do something in the ambient world or in the praise and worship style world, or something that kind of combines like pop and ambient stuff at the same time. Stuff that, quite honestly, he knows I can handle. I get there, by the time I finished setting up all my stuff and I was ready to go, in walks two other musicians, a drummer and a bass player, who were there to record on the very same session after I was done. No pressure, right? So the producer presses play, I hear the song once or twice, and then I begin to tell him what ideas that I have. He likes them. We lay the song down. I'd say within about 45 minutes to an hour, not only was I done with that track, but I was even able to lay down some ambient stuff on another track that he had that he, thought I would sound good on as well. So we got a lot accomplished within an hour, and I was pretty much in and out of there and ready to get out of the way so he can record drums and bass for that very same track. But before I left, the drummer pulls me to the side and he goes, "Man, I really dig your sound and what you do. Would you be willing to do some guitar work for some tracks that I'm working on in my studio back at home?" And I said, "Sure, no problem at all. Here's my information." Within a week, I had got a call from him, and he literally booked me for the very next day. Like, he called me with less than 24 hours notice and said, "Can you come tomorrow? I have an available session, and I got a song that I really need to finish, and I think you'll be perfect for it." I said, "Absolutely, I'll be there." Now keep in mind, this was a good 2-hour drive from me, so it wasn't close. In fact, it was literally out of state for me personally, especially now that I moved. A lot of my clientele, as I've said in other videos, both in my barbering and with music, are still back in New York City, and I no longer live in New York City. So I took the 2-hour drive back to New York City to make this session work. I get there, everybody's cool, the studio's a cool atmosphere, we say hello, I set up my gear, and then the engineer presses play, and he begins to play music that I love, but that I cannot play. Essentially, if I had to categorize the song, it fell into the category of like modern day quartet gospel music. Guys, you don't have to watch my channel for a long time to know that that's just not what I do. I love it. I absolutely love that style of music. In fact, some of my favorite guitarists play that style of music. So I'm hearing this song, and the first thing that comes to mind is, man, you would have been so much better off if you had hired, I don't know, Landon Jordan. Or Isaiah Sharkey. But instead, you hired Jay Cruz. I'm not cool. And I have no idea how to accomplish what you need from me on this track. So finally, the track finishes playing, and I'm looking around the room, and immediately I begin to feel like sick, almost physically sick to my stomach. Like I know I don't belong here.
No, God!
I know that this is not my gig. This is not my cup of tea, and I'm gonna be exposed. And I'm about to be exposed right here, right now. So what I really felt in my heart I wanted to do was actually let them know, like, hey, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. This is not my style of music. I don't think that I'm the guy for the job, and I highly recommend that you hire so-and-so or so-and-so. As I love to do, by the way, I do not believe in, like, being competitive with other guitarists. I'm totally on board with the guitar community being a community. On the other side of it, I was also thinking about the cost. Like, I just drove 2 hours. I needed to get paid, so I reluctantly started the session, even though I knew I probably shouldn't have. Long story short, it became very clear that the music they thought I could handle, I couldn't handle it. I knew it, and the more and more time went on, the more that my confidence started going way down the toilet fast, and stuff that even that I knew I could play, I couldn't even play anymore. I was becoming nervous. I was fumbling. It was a disaster. It's now an hour plus, and I haven't even laid down one note on this track yet. I'm struggling. Finally, I stopped the session and I say, look, guys, at the risk of sounding very unprofessional and flat out embarrassing myself, this is not my genre of music. I'm like the ambient guy. You want me to do Hillsong, Elevation, I can probably pull that stuff off, but this stuff I'm having a hard time pulling off. I'm sorry. So if you want to get anything out of this session, treat me like the most baby of babies when it comes to music, and walk me through every single step of the way and tell me what you want me to play and how to play it. And that's the only way we're going to be able to get through this. They kind of laughed it off and said, no problem, Jay, let's do this thing. And we went literally bar for bar throughout the entire song, which ended up being, like, no joke, I know they're going to eventually cut it down, but it was like a 7 to 10 minute song, so it was a long session. I will say this, we got through it. It sounded okay, but it wasn't a good representation of me and what I was capable of, and it also wasn't a representation of what they thought they were going to get out of me. Flat out, I was the wrong guy for the job. I just didn't have the tools to pull that job off. Now, I've had some embarrassing moments in my day, 20 plus year career, you're going to have that, right? I toured, so I've fallen flat on my back on stage. I've completely played the wrong note. In fact, there was a live show that I did where the lights went completely black on purpose, by the way, and I couldn't see my guitar neck, and I started the song in a completely wrong key. It was the most embarrassing thing ever, but for whatever reason, this session just really hit me hard and really got me down. At the end of the session, you can kind of tell the vibe of everybody was like, thanks for trying, type of a thing. And they paid me, and I got in my car and I sat there for about 10 minutes. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't cry, but I definitely wanted to. Like, I was really hurt. I was contemplating just quitting altogether, as I really felt like, if I can't do this, then what am I doing it for? 20 plus years, and I just embarrassed myself in there. And I just couldn't believe what I was feeling at that moment. Here I am on YouTube giving out advice, and I can't even complete a session properly. I don't know, it just felt like I was a imposter. I ended up calling my wife and telling her what happened, and she was super sensitive about the situation, and she said something that sort of sparked something in me that changed my perception from that point on. She said, Jay, you're gonna have to decide what you want to do about this. What she meant by that was, you have to decide if this is gonna make you or break you. Are you going to use this to build you up or crumble you? Let's talk about the things that maybe I should have done. First and foremost, I should have asked for a reference track to hear what I was being hired for. Full disclosure, this is something that I used to do with every single recording session that I would get booked for. But in recent years, I stopped listening to the songs before I got to the session because I found myself overthinking it, creating parts in my head and then thinking, oh, they're not good enough, they're not good enough. Sometimes I would get to the session and I'd have all these parts planned out in my head and I either couldn't execute them, or the artist didn't really like where I was taking the direction, or the producer wasn't feeling it too much and they wanted me to play something else. So I personally found that listening to the track beforehand was doing more damage than good, and I kind of liked listening to the song for the first time and playing whatever came to me at that moment. I feel like it's, I don't know, I had more successful sessions that way. But in this particular case, being that I was working with a new producer, a new artist, a new musician that I had never worked with before, I probably should have requested to hear the track beforehand so that I could be honest about whether or not I could have been the right guy for the job. Had I listened to that song the night before from the comfort of my home, I could have easily told the guy, look, I appreciate it, but this is not for me. I'm not going to be able to give you what you need on this track. I highly recommend you hire somebody else. It would have saved him money. It would have saved us both the heartache, and it would have saved me a 2-hour trip. And to be honest with you, he didn't tell me this. No one told me this, but I'm pretty sure he had to hire another guitarist to do overdubs and re-record everything that I did because I just didn't nail the track like I know it needed to be nailed. So it ended up costing him more money, and I feel absolutely terrible about that. The other thing that I could have done had been honest with myself. Right there in the beginning when I heard the song and I knew that I wasn't the right guy for the job, I should have been honest about it from the get-go. Even though it would have cost me money to go all the way back home, essentially taking 4 up to 5 hours out of my day, which is more than half a day's work if you consider a work day is about 8 hours. It would have cost me a lot of time and effort, but it would have also saved me a lot of heartache. And so I think I still had an opportunity to be honest with myself right at the beginning of the session, and I decided to try to power through even though I knew for a fact that I wasn't the right guy for the job. More importantly, here's how I built myself up so that I didn't stay discouraged. I listened to what my wife said and I decided to let this thing encourage me. You see, I contemplated quitting right after that session, but I didn't. And the reason for that was because I know what I'm called to do. It's honestly okay to know your own limitations. I've talked about this on this channel before, learning how to say no. It's okay to know when you're not the right guy for a job. You see, a hammer is an amazing tool. In fact, if I brought a hammer to a construction job, I can do a lot of good with it. I can take nails off the wall, I can put nails into a wall. I can do so much with that hammer. But if you told me I had to do a plumbing job and maybe like install or fix a kitchen sink, that hammer is virtually useless. Now a wrench, that's the right tool for the job. You see, just knowing your own limitations and knowing that not everybody is a guitar virtuoso or a musician virtuoso. I can't play every style of music, and that's okay. Knowing what my personal limitations are and knowing what I'm good at is important because it helps me along the way and it helps the artists and producers who hire me along the way as well. Now don't get me wrong, that was an extremely embarrassing situation, but I've learned over the years as I've gotten older not to be embarrassed by those situations, but just to laugh it off, learn from them, and build myself up. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please do all the things to help this channel grow. Like this video, subscribe and comment below, and be sure to hit the bell icon so you know every single time I upload a video. Thanks again for watching, and until next time.